Hi, this is Sara Levin, the Artful Inker. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the United States. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, I've got a couple of in-the-moment, special moments cards to share with you. Let me set them aside and we'll get to the creating. For this card, we're going to start with an in-the-moment stamp. This set is in the January to June Stampin' Up! Mini catalog that went live on January 4th. And I've got a piece of basic white, and I'm going to take my basic gray ink pad and the stamp that has the gal. Let's turn this over so I can see what I've inked. Okay, that looks good. And then just stamp on my piece of cardstock here. Make sure I rub all the way out and around and in the middle. Okay, and let's set her aside and close up my ink pad. And then we're going to do some coloring. So I'm going to move this up here and let's zoom in. Okay, and I need to bring in my Stampin' Blends. And I'm going to start with some cinnamon cider and use that on her pants. And I went the brush tip in the lighter and then the bullet in the darker. We're working in a small space and I'm just going to outline her pocket here. And then that was the dark. And then I'm bringing in the light here. And I'm going to bring that back across that darkened line across the pocket. And then just come in here with the dark here on those two lines from the stamp and continue to blend on out with the light. And then I want a little bit of dark up here under her sleeve, and we're going to add in those shadow lines with the dark as well, and then just blend back and forth here a little bit at the knee because the shadow is from her arm resting there. Okay, and then we're going to add some in there, and I think there should be a little more shadow here where she's got her knee bent, because I know that would cause a shadow on my pants. And so I'm using the dark bullet tip there and then just coming across with the light to finish filling. Okay, and that's an easy treatment on her pants. I am going to use, I don't know whether this is a belt or the waist of the pants, but we're going to do that in just the dark for a little contrast and just give a little dark there on the pocket. Okay, so pants are done. Let me cap these up so they don't dry out. And then we're going to do her shirt in Just Jade. And again, I'm going to use my dark bullet tip and the light brush tip. And let's start up here on the shoulder under her hair with the dark and brush that down with the light to keep that from giving us a line. And I'm just going to turn this a little bit. I love that I can color in any direction and I don't get lines caused by changing the direction of my coloring, like we did with our crayons when we were little. Okay, a little bit of dark under the armpit, not so much that you give her a sweat stain, but enough that we see that there's a little bit of shadow there. And just bringing that down with the light so that you get the shadow but not a harsh line of it. And then we need a little shadow here where it's kind of behind the pants a little bit. going to bring in some of that color here on those lines, and then just give it another quick brush so that it's not quite as evident that I colored a line. And we've got a little bit of shirt tucked back here, and I'm going to make that in the dark, and there may be a little more over here. It's kind of hard to tell sometimes until you get coloring. Okay, so there's her shirt. Let's cap up the Just Jade and move on. And we're going to put her on, going to make this a yellow cushion underneath her. And again, I'm going to use my bullet tip. This is Daffodil Delight, since we don't have any Bumblebee, which is one of my final colors. So I'm going to start here around her bottom and give a little bit of shadow all the way across here. And then I'm going to brush that out with my light. Okay, and then I'm going to color this edge piece with my dark Daffodil Delight. Okay, and let's cap those up. And we've got cushions here behind her, pillows, and I've got cherry cobbler for that. And again, we're going to do dark, and this time also light for part of this in the bullet tip, because we're working in a small area. So putting down my dark first, and then coming across with my light and bringing it out to the corner here. And we're going to go dark here and here. And let's turn this. And okay, and then the dark down along her, behind her foot here and leg. And then let's cap up the bullet end, and I'm going to use the brush tip now on that cherry cobbler and brush up. And just want to give a couple quick brushes here. Give it a little, and one more brush with the light over top. Okay, and so there are my cushions, pillows, and need to color her hair. And for that, I'm going to use my light and dark soft suede and a little bit of dark Daffodil Delight. And I'm going to build color on. And I'm using the light as a little bit of shading. Want the bullet tip for this because I'm working in such a small area. And just trying to create and preserve some of that texture that you get from the stamp by layering the color in. And that was the dark soft suede, and now I'm going with the light soft suede. I don't really want the Daffodil Delight to show by itself. And carefully coloring down at the bottom of the hair so that we get all the way to the end and don't leave lots of white space. Okay, so that's that. Let me grab that dark Daffodil Delight, and we're going to color her little hair clip here. Give her a spot of color in there. And then I want my light pool party, and I'm just going to scribble a little bit in the windows here to give them the idea that we've got a little outside view. And then we need to give her skin a little bit of color. And I'm going to use the ivory and use the lighten blends technique. It sometimes has a little too much color for me, and the lighten blends technique allows me to put down a little bit of color, because I just want her to not be the color of basic white rather than deeply colored. Okay, and that gives her a little bit of skin tone. And then let's color her mug, and we're just going to use mostly dark pool party for that, so that we don't introduce a whole lot more color into what we've got going on. Okay, so there's our coloring for our In the Moment gal. I'm going to step off camera and die cut, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've die cut our gal that we stamped and colored with a layering circle, and then I used a layering circle to cut a piece of pool party, and then embossed it with the brick and mortar 3D embossing folder. And now we're almost ready to put our card together. But for our sentiment, I've used one of the Special Moments sentiments. Now this is a Sale-a-Bration set that's available with a $100 order in my store during January and February 2022. And it's free with that product order. And I'm going to use that sentiment on a piece of pool party and use basic gray again. And a sentiment set is a great way to stretch a image set that you love by being able to add a few more sentiments to it. And that Special Moments set is great. I really like the font and the selection of sentiments in the set. I'm just taking my time. I'm not quite sure I'm straight, and we'll see. That looks pretty good. And this says hang in there, and which I think goes great with that kind of wistful look from the stamped image. Now for the inside of my card, I've got a piece of basic white, and then I've cut a piece of pool party with a pinned flowers die, and I'm just going to add some multi-purpose glue on the back of this scallop die cut. I think I've glued more than I need. I'm going to put that down first. Let's straighten everything up on that grid paper, and I'm going to also use the grid paper line for my scallop to keep it straight on here. Now let's just touch this a second to keep it down. And then let's adhere a piece of this Bumblebee in color paper from the 2020-2022 in color paper stack. Okay, I'm edge to edge here, just checking, because with that little bit of wiggle room for the glue, I can make sure that I'm all good here. And then let's take my paper snips and cut my overage. This way I can make sure that I've got all the scallops I want on there before cutting. And then I've got a piece of bumblebee cardstock as my card base. And let's put a little bit of multi-purpose glue on that. I saw someone in a card group recently asking if that little zigzag of glue really holds everything down, and yes it does hold everything down. The edges aren't, you know, coming up. Okay, then I've got a pool party mat and a larger piece of that bumblebee paper. All the measurements for this will be in a project sheet that you can get if you're one of my newsletter subscribers. And I'll send that newsletter out on January 16th. So if you're a subscriber before the 16th, then you will get this. Okay, so now let's adhere my circles. And first I need to grab my dimensionals over here, because we all know I love my dimensionals. Now I'm not going to put a dimensional over here on this right-hand side because my gal is going to be overlapping that, and it just makes the layering a little bit easier not to have that added bulk. So I'm going to double stack on the right, single stack on the top, double stack on the bottom, and then I need a single back here. But before I adhere her completely, let's put that out of the way. I want to add a little bit of ribbon, and I've got this Pool Party shimmer ribbon. And let's find my tear and tape here, and I'm going to add the tear and tape to my shimmer ribbon. Let's just make sure that I'm staying within the lines of the ribbon here, and I don't need a great deal of ribbon. Okay, let's give that a little bit of rub across here. And this is the only tricky part, is pulling up that backing when it's on the ribbon instead of paper. Not too tricky. Okay, and I want to come in here and give this a really kind of wonky zigzag on here. And putting the tape on the ribbon lets me manipulate this just a little bit more than I might ordinarily be able to do. Okay, and then I'm going to cut this at an angle here. And we're going to let that flow out the bottom underneath our gal. Okay. And then let's put dimensionals on the back here. It's Sale-a-Bration, which is a great time to stock up on your adhesives. I know I've just taken stock of my dimensional stash, and they will be on my next order. I'm down to my last couple of packs, and whew, I do use them. Okay, let's pop this on here Just checking the top and sides, and that means my bottom will be aligned as well. And then we're back here to our sentiment, and I'm going to use my paper snips and then my fingers as the guide here for straight enough. If you want it straight, then put it in your paper trimmer. And then just checking out, I need a single here and then a double on the end. Just making sure I'm straight with this. And it seems it's a tad low. And then I'd like just a little more embellishment with this. And for my embellishment, I'm going to use those genial gems from the annual catalog. And they've got, this one has just enough little color on here. And then let's do some of the smaller gems here. And let's see. And then we're going to do one more down here. Okay. And there's my In the Moment Special Moments card. Let me clean up and I'll have a second one for you. For the second card, we're also going to be using that In the Moment stamp set from the January to June Stampin' Up! Mini Catalog from 2022. And then a sentiment from Special Moments, which is a free Sale-a-Bration set with a $100 purchase in my Stampin' Up! Store. You can find a link for that in the description below the video, and that's available in January and February. And I've got a piece of scrap paper, and I have die cut a frame out of scrap paper, text weight, using a stitched rectangle die. You could use your paper trimmer if you wanted. And underneath I've got a piece of basic white. And I'm going to blend on a background, starting with Flirty Flamingo. And let's just grab my blending brush here. And I just, yep, I've picked up ink. Just wanted to do a test there. And I'm holding the head of my blending brush so that the ink goes on, oops, more darkly to begin with, instead of building up color slowly. And I'm just holding my frame a little on the sides as I move across. Oops. And when you start on the frame piece, then you get, that takes that initial blop of color and softens it a little bit as you come onto your cardstock. And I just want to go across here, kind of back and forth a couple of times. And that's it for my Flirty Flamingo. Let me set it aside. And then I'm going to move on to Polished Pink. So let's load up my blending brush and give it a test here. And then the same thing. I'm hoping my arm isn't completely in the way here. And we're just going to move right across below my Flirty Flamingo. And of course you will blend a little bit. You don't want a harsh line, or maybe you do. I'm not looking for a harsh line, but you might want a very defined line where those colors meet. And let me come in here. And I want just a little more of this color. Polished pink is one of my favorite in colors. It's a lovely bright pink that goes with so many things. And then I'm going to do the same thing and come just back and forth here a little bit to deepen my shade. And down here on the bottom, kind of complete that area. Okay, let's close this. And next, I want some Daffodil Delight. And I'm going to switch blending brushes for this and pick up the one I use for yellows. Okay, let's load that well. And just holding the edges of my frame down. And a little bit of overlap with that polished pink. Okay. And then finally, I'm going to use some Coastal Cabana. Let me get my blending brush for blues and give it a... Okay. Now I want to hold this in the corner and make sure that I'm not going to rub it outside the corner. And same thing here. And a little bit more. If your ink pad is a little juicier than mine, it may not take quite as many passes. I'm thinking it might be time for me to re-ink mine. Okay, so there's my center panel. Let's take this out of here and take this out. And then I need to bring in my Stamparatus, and we're going to situate our piece of cardstock in the Stamparatus, and I just want to get my weights magnets on here. And then I'm going to use my grid sheet here and place my stamp, what I think is straight and in the middle. Let me turn this over again. This one is from In the Moment. Okay, and then I'm going to give that a test inking with my Memento ink to make sure that this is going to be straight on here. Okay, and I look like I am low on this end, so let's see if I give that just a smidge of whether that fixes my problem there. That looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to take this out of the way for the moment and ink up my stamp again in Memento. Okay, and let's do her one more time. Want to make sure she's good and inked. That looks great. And then we're just going to pull our piece out of here And move this aside. And set this aside a moment. And then I need a sentiment. And I've got a piece of basic white and a stamp from Special Moments. Now, as I said before, this is a great stamp set because it covers so many, many, many occasions, and it will extend the versatility of your image stamps by providing you with a great set of sentiments. So let's close my Memento ink so that I don't get it on everything else. And I want to cut my sentiment out. Since I've inked recently, I'm going to make sure that I'm holding my cardstock out along an edge that's not going to touch the ink. And come up here. I'm trying to leave a white border, some but not much. And then you can choose to cut down in or just straight across the D and the T and the H. I'm going for more shape, but you may find it easier just to cut straight across at the highest point. Okay, and then round the corner here. Okay, let's put these scraps out of the way. Then next, I'm going to adhere our sentiment to a piece of black, basic black scrap. And let's turn this around here. And I'm just going to trim this out again, leaving just a little bit of a black border around that same shape that I just cut for our stamped sentiment. I am going to go ahead and cut this off here because it's easier to manage in a smaller piece. And come on around. Trying not to get too close to the shape that I already cut. I just want a narrow black border. I think this will be easier for you at home since you won't be worrying about making sure that you're in the camera frame and how the light's hitting it. Okay, so we've got a nice little border there, and we're ready to assemble our card. So I've got a polished pink base here, and I'm going to adhere our stamped layer directly to it. It's a matte, not a base, and it's got just a very narrow border. So we're going to have just a tiny bit of that polished pink peeking from behind. Okay, let's set that aside and bring in my card base, which is thick basic white. And then I've got a couple of strips of cardstock here, a basic black and a polished pink. And we're just going to add stripes to our card on the inside to give it just a hint of personality. And let's make sure that I'm all the way over to the left edge. And that looks straight to me. And then we'll add our polished pink. Now I did cut both of these just a smidge long because I prefer to trim rather than go, oops, I didn't cut that long enough. So our stripes on the inside mimic the stripe a little bit that we have going on the outside. And we'll just turn that over and use the edge of our card as our trimming guide. Okay, and now let's move back out here to the front, and I need my dimensionals. And let's turn our focal layer over and add dimensionals. Make sure you're supporting the middle. Oops. And one more backing piece here. And again, I'm going to line up on my grid paper. Okay, and then let's add some dimensionals to the back of this piece. And I think I may need to bring in a couple of mini Stampin' dimensionals. We're just going to pull this off to the right a little bit. And then let's add some embellishments. Got my Take Your Pick tool, and then these matte black dots. And let's go up here with one, and let's maybe come in here with one. Going to go with a second here, which means I'm going to move this one over a little bit so that we get that kind of triangle happening. And that one looks pretty lonely down there. So let's give it a second one here. And then I'll come back up here at the top and add a third one. And there's our In the Moment, Special Moments birthday card. Thanks for stopping in today. This was Sara Levin, the Artful Inker. If you're in the United States, please do some of your Stampin' Up! Shopping in my store. There's a link in the description below the video. You can give this video a thumbs up, share it with your card-making friends, and of course, when you subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the bell, you'll be notified the next time I upload a video. Have a great day. Bye.